I remember in school hearing about different artists like Rembrandt and all this stuff, and I remember connecting the dots thinking like, people who make video games are artists. They do the same thing. I'm Mika, and I'm a video game developer by day and an obsessive video game collector by night, which some might consider a problem because I have thousands of games and hundreds of consoles. This is my game bunker, basically. I remember my wife telling me, all your video game stuff goes down there. Over time, I just started to cram, like Tetris. Any area where I could fit something, I would fit something. And now it's this crazy game man cave thing that is just unending and kind of become my albatross or curse. I remember looking at the corner of the arcade and there was all these people gathered around like moths to a light, and there was this beautiful Star Wars cockpit arcade game, and you were playing the role of Luke Skywalker destroying the Death Star. It's every child's fantasy at the time. When I finally became an adult, a man-child, I spent one of my first paychecks on getting a Star Wars sit-down arcade cabinet, and no regrets. It's one of the best things I've ever bought. So this is the Atari Pong machine. What was so magical, I think, about it was that you could walk up to it and drop in a quarter and just play, because it was really simple. It says, deposit quarter, ball will serve automatically, avoid missing ball for high score, and that's it. That's all you had to do. And because it required 2 players, Nolan Bushnell tells a story about how he met so many couples who met playing Pong and would eventually get married, and they contribute Pong as being the game that they played over and first met each other at. The first console I ever got was an Atari 2600. I remember opening it on Christmas morning, and the box and everything was just amazing. And so this is kind of how I would have received it on Christmas morning. And that's what the Atari looked like, and had this like sleek black grille, owner's manual, the 1-button controller. From that day on, every time I got a video game, I was enthralled with everything about it. The packaging, the manuals, the artwork that was created to get people excited about the game that was on the box. It just became a passion of mine to keep all that stuff intact. So this is Space Invaders, which was the very first Atari 2600 game I had. A lot of great memories in this game, and these early games where they didn't have much in the graphics, they tried to offer you variety. So on the front it says 112 video games, which is a little misleading because it's just one game, but tons of variations and ways to play it. Sword Quest, you could actually win $100,000 plus gold prizes, and people who got the prizes melted them down for the money. Once '83 came around, that was the year that video games had their first what they called a crash, and games were just being shoved out to the marketplace at just discount rate. And something kind of clicked. I wanted to grab every one of these games that were unique, so I started buying these games with all my lunch money and whatever else I had. Those last generation games, those games that were being dumped at the end, are some of the most valuable and rare games today. When I was doing all this, I felt kind of alone. I felt like I was the only person trying to do this. And it wasn't until I moved into the Bay Area around '97 that I started to meet other people like myself. And that led to kind of a network of people who I think were holding on to stuff, hoping one day somebody like myself would come along and take this off their hands, but know that it wouldn't be thrown away or discarded. So there's the Commodore 64. Oh, there's Mule. A lot of games that are around now are around because piracy existed. There's a lot of games that are hard to find. Like Mule is one of these games that is really difficult to find the actual copy of. So you see these crack screens like Sauron was here. And it's like, okay, Sauron, thanks for getting me a copy of Mule. I have Half-Life for Dreamcast, and it's a game that went all the way up to the point of being manufactured and then was canceled. If you think about all the work that has gone into these games and this evolution of this hardware, there's a lot of stuff that had to be created and thrown away along the way. I'm trying to go out there and find the stuff that helped pave the way to where we are today, because it tells a story about how we got to where we are today technologically. Oh. It's funny, I've been making games for over 20 years, but the one thing most people remember me for, something I did 5 years ago now. He's where he's gonna lose. My daughter, who was 3 at the time, she actually was very good at Donkey Kong, the arcade version. One day, she just asked me, like, why can't I play as the girl at the top instead of Mario? It just stuck in my head because later I'm like, I do this, I hack games, I make games, I do stuff, so I wonder if I can just swap the roles. Ah! She's great, and she's taught me that representation in games is something that's way more important than I ever understood from my perspective growing up. And now everything I work on is informed by that in that moment. Yeah. I never really had that collector mentality in which I feel like I have to own it and I have to be the only one. I prefer just knowing that things are safe and that people have it and that it's accessible. Because of all this collecting and kind of the weird nature of the room itself, it's got a lot of attention from people. It's become a fifth member of the family, the famous member. Most people just like to come in and experience the room itself and kind of play games in here and just explore things and find things they remember having when they were kids.